Okay, well, first of all, the real reason I'm up here is because I'm the oldest guy here. That's why I was chosen. Because, Bill asked me to talk about the Schuberts. So I probably have the longest memory simply because I'm old. And as Bill said, I'm Joe Denny, and most people know who I am, but there's some who don't. And so I'll get to that where the Denny's fit into the scheme of things. But in recent years, I've been more frequently known as Muck. Okay, so Muck, that's right, M-U-C-K, Muck. Because that's what my grandson named me, Jack, who's now 5 years old, he's 2. He also started calling me Muck for reasons nobody knows. And now I have a granddaughter who will be 2 in a couple of months, and she doesn't really speak yet in like sentences or anything, it's a few words. But she loudly and clearly says Muck when she comes chasing after me. Actually, she usually goes Muck, 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 Muck. So that of course brings to Karen now calls me Muck. My son-in-law calls me Muck. Everyone calls me Muck. So actually, that's my name now. There's nothing that warms my heart with such joy as hearing little voices call me Muck. So just as a life lesson. You never know what's going to happen in your life. But I certainly would not have guessed 10 years ago that having people call me Muck would make me feel so great. Life changes. I want to talk about the Schuberts because I am old enough to actually have memories of them. And I know everybody in this room knew the Schuberts, and for some of you, that family that was my mom's family, her siblings, were your mothers or your grandmothers, so you know them well too. But I actually have memories of Mom and Papa. Not everybody does, because they died when most of you were young or not even born. And so I'm just going to tell you some recollections of that Schubert family, both individually and collectively, because they both sort of influenced my life and they've influenced who we are. Papa was a silver-haired, white-haired gentleman. He was always dressed beautifully. Even as a little kid, you could tell he was a very kind and gentle soul. He was just a nice man. And he would always interact with us as kids. And he would always tell us to speak into his tin ear because he was hard of hearing. And so he had a hearing aid, and back then it was in your pocket here, and it was like a thing with a microphone on it with a wire going up in your ear. He called it his tin ear. And so he would always say as a kid, talking to my tin ear. And he was kind enough to pass that along to my mother, who was kind enough to pass that along to us. And so I'm standing here right now with 2 tin ears. So there's a family in Hartman's right there. Mama was also, of course, she treated the kids great, her grandchildren, she gave us treats. But you could tell Mama was tougher than Papa. You could just tell. She was, she always, like I said, you didn't want to mess with Mama. She ran with us. So those are my recollections at the very top. And then the family, all those names on the top of the letterhead. I thought today I tried to put at least a little bit of flesh on those names. So you had the family there, and there was 4 sisters and 3 brothers. And from that 7, 2 of the brothers, Bill and John, did not have children. So that leaves 5, the 4 sisters and the 1 brother. And everybody here, and thousands more, are direct descendants of those 5 and their spouses. And so the girls, my mother being the oldest, Mary Kay, married Joe Denny. So you had the Denny clan. And then Agnes married John Mezzanotte, so you got the Mezzanotte clan. And Rosita married Bill Coffey, you got the Coffey clan. And then Rita married Hoods, and so you had the Hoods and Burgers. So those are the clans, and then of course Uncle Tom's the Schuberts. So then I want to have a name because the girls passed on most of us. We all have different names. But this group, this family, made a huge impression on me when I was young. And I must say a very positive impression. Because of how much they enjoyed one another, how much laughter I heard from them, you know, how they always cared for one another. If someone was sick, someone was hurt, they were all there. It was truly a model, I thought, for us. And I go back, and I think about them as individuals. Uncle Bill Schubert has always been my model as a big brother. I thought Uncle Bill was the ultimate big brother. He had like a radar that was just scanning all the time, looking for anybody that needed a little help, that needed a kind word. He just scanned, and not just his siblings, his nieces, his nephews. And I guess other people were aware of that too, but I was very aware of it. And I always took that as like what a big brother should do. And then you had Tom Schubert, who was the quiet one. Everybody always called him the quiet one. And when he got married, Jane used to complain to my mom about how quiet the house was. Nobody ever spoke. There was no noise in the house. Tom was just completely quiet until Mary Frances came along. And then she longed for those days. And Mary Frances talked to her from dawn till dusk, never stopped. But Tom, as quiet as he was, as funny as he was, when he went to a basketball game, it was like a madman. He was freaking crazy at basketball games. He knew the name of every ref. I don't know how he knew all the names, but he did. And he would be in the stands bellowing at them the whole game by name. It was so totally out of character. But, and they only sat down about 5 seats for me, 800 seats there. And so, some call at Uncle Tom, they can hear the whole place, going, "Higgins, you moron!" It's Uncle Tom. He was very quiet, very calm guy. He was nuts at basketball games. In fact, Uncle Bill and Uncle Tom took me to my first basketball games when I was like 6, 7 years old. They took me down to the Palestra. And their seats were like right under the basket. You thought these monsters were going to kill you when they came down. And I'm assuming that I got to go, and for some reason Papa couldn't go, because he was a basketball nut too. And so I would get Papa's seat, and I would sit there with Uncle Tom. Those were great days. I mean, that was really fun. And then Uncle John, of course, was the baby of the family. And it's one of my real estate associates said, and the last of the true wild men. And I think that was a good description of John Schubert. He was a character. I could spend the whole talk about John Schubert, but let's just say that John was bigger than life. If John was in a room and there was 500 people there, you'd know within a minute if he was in the room because you could hear him. I mean, you hear his laugh, which was and it was a booming thing. And you hear him anyway. John knew everybody. Everybody. I mean, you could go into any restaurant, any bar, anywhere in Philadelphia. He knew everybody, and everybody knew him. Everybody loved him. These were all, by the way, successful businessmen. I mean, Pop was a lawyer, and Pop had a law firm where 2 of his partners were his sons. Tom was a partner, Bill was a partner. The other partners, but these were successful guys. Uncle John was executive vice president of the Land Title Insurance Company. And so he was basically in the real estate business because he sold title insurance. And he sold a lot of it. And I spent my life in the real estate business, developing and so forth. And we got most of our title insurance through Uncle John. I didn't through Uncle John that one of the first people who told me about Bill Roush, who I ultimately ended up spending my whole career with. They were friends. That's another complete other story. But anyhow, so Uncle John was this crazy guy. I can remember when I was a young man living in New York. Uncle John come to New York to call me, and he'd be up there for a convention or something, and say, "All right, when work's over, come meet me at my hotel." So I would go up and I'd knock on his door at the hotel. You usually have to get him up because his work started when most people were going to bed, and then it went like through the night. He entertained people. He sold a lot of title insurance. So I'd wake him up, and off we'd go. And I would deliver him back to the hotel at 3 a.m. or something, and we would, I remember nights standing on tables singing Dixie with some bank presidents from Georgia with Uncle John. I mean, a lot of the meetings with Uncle John were a blur, but he was the most engaging guy. And I do remember at one time in New York, we were in this convention. Now we're in New York, I'm Philadelphia. And he's saying hello to everybody in the elevator, saying hello to him. Everybody, but not only say hello, he would say, hi Pete, how you doing? How's it? You didn't know the wife's name, you didn't know the kid's name. And I've got my whole life, I don't know who anybody is. People come up to me all the time saying, hey, I have no idea. I'm fucking Uncle John knew everybody. So I finally asked him, I said, how many of these people do you know? And he said, what do you mean by know? I said, I don't know, you know their names, you know their family. He says, there's probably like 800 people here. Yes, I know 500 of them. It's unbelievable. Only my brother John knew as many people as Uncle John. So, okay, those are the boys. The girls start with my mom, Mary Kay. Mary Catherine was her name. People called her Mary Kay. And Mom was a force of nature, that's all I can say about her. She was, she could do anything. I mean, she raised 8 kids, she cooked a big dinner every night, but, on the sidelines, she was president of the Archdiocese School Board, she was the first woman ever on the board of local university. She was always having people from an old age home over for lunch, she worked in charitable things. I mean, she was, extraordinary. I know where all that energy comes from. I think often of Rosanita coffee as being cut from the same cloth. I mean, enormous energy. Raising a big family, taking care of everything, on 700 committees. That sort of force of nature. I think they followed from Mama. I don't know if Mama did all that kind of exterior work that they did, but I think they had that same kind of energy. And again, they weren't people you would necessarily mess with. They were tough. They were tough. I can remember laughing so much with Aunt Rosanita about all sorts of things. She was a fabulous storyteller. And I couldn't remember half the stories, but she would tell you stories, like all the grandchildren back in church. I remember once and the kid had like really bad diarrhea coming out. And she's dressed for this wedding and it's getting all over her outfit. And of course, as she's telling, it's like tears are coming out of her eyes. She's laughing so much. And she could make you see this, a baby while she's dressed pooping all over her, and tell it hilariously. It was, oh my God, she was funny. But again, of course, the nature. And Agnes was the blonde in the family. And also, for those who don't know, Agnes and Rosanita got married in a dual wedding. Together, for them, got married. They both married doctors. I never heard of a dual wedding before or since, but that's how they got married, dual wedding. And so that's how tight they were. They were really close. And Agnes was like, she was like sparkling. And Agnes was always smiling. She was always laughing. Maybe the kids thought she was tougher than that, but she was. I loved it. She was, and she would start, from the time I was, like in 5th grade, she would, jab at me that stupid stuff I do. I still remember being down the Sure ones and I was saving my bubble gum on my dinner plate on the side. And I probably sure I said these are gone for 12 days. And she noticed it and gave me grief for like a week after, all while Hallie was laughing. She was up. And then, at the point in my career when I was building a little mall, up right near your home, right near the mezzanine home. So I would run over to see her sometimes. Or I'd call her and we'd just grab a cup of coffee somewhere. And we had so much fun. She was just funny. And she made me laugh. And she told me stories. She was great. When Agnes died, young, very young. Uncle John died when he was 49. The baby fat died first. And Agnes was like 52 and 53. She was really young. Died of breast cancer. And I remember the wake was in their home. It's in the dining room. And I got into the wake. And this has never happened to me before, and it's never happened to me since. But I couldn't go in. I couldn't make myself go into that room where she was. I just couldn't do it. And I kept trying, and I mean, I had such a relationship with Agnes, and I ended up out on the front lawn. It was dark, and I was just out there crying by myself. I could not, I've never had such a reaction at a wake before or since. Anyhow, he decides very fond of Aunt Agnes. Aunt Rita was another world unto themselves. Well, the Rosenbergers, and still are. A world unto themselves. And so when I'm 16, I'm in my 16th year, I thought it'd be good to get out of the house for a little bit.
We all love that.
Everybody loves it. Particularly mom. So we agreed I would go to the Rosenbergers for the summer and live there. And it was great. And so I would get a job in Margate and do the whole thing. Well, I'll tell you, people travel to great foreign lands to see how different cultures live and so forth. There was no need to go to Margate because it's a whole different culture than anything I was used to. And I have 100 stories from that summer, but like some of the ones that like try to capture it is Uncle Hoopy comes home late. We call him Uncle Hoopy. He comes home late from work. He had a real estate business. He started out as a baker. When I first knew him, he had a bakery out in nowhere, Pennsylvania, out in the woods somewhere. But he would make me jelly donuts, and he would double shoot them. So he was one of my favorites. He would slip them to me on his so he was a real favorite uncle. But anyhow, so we go down and we're down in Margate. He's built himself a very nice real estate business down there. So he's out working. So we're at home, and I'm older than the Rosenberger kids. Still am. and so I'm 16. But anyhow, so he's late coming home, and when he comes home, gathers everybody. We go up and we're on his bed, everybody. And because he hadn't had dinner, he got himself dinner. Not like my house. His dinner was a 12-pack of frozen hot dogs, which were solid frozen, and a jar of mustard. And he sat on the bed while he was cracking up the hot dogs, dunking them in the mustard, and then snapping them up and chewing. That's what he had for dinner. Rosenbergers didn't think a thing of it. Yeah, I thought I was in a foreign country. The other thing I remember was so he taught me, I learned a lot that summer. In a lot of different ways I really did. But the other incident that I remember most fun is one night in the evening, it was after dinner, and all of a sudden all the lights in the house are going out. Lights are going out this one. And then all of a sudden, I hear Aunt Rita squealing and laughing, like she was a high school kid. Uncle Hoopy's chasing her around the house. They're going up the steps, down the steps, all this squealing and laughing. Nothing like this has ever happened. Nothing even close to me. Like this has ever happened. It was quite a family. Four sisters and the three brothers. And that's who those people are on the top of that. What do we call it? A letterhead, thank you. Head. Yeah, exactly. They were quite a family. And the guys, the girls even married. I mean, Uncle Bill Coffey, what a character he was. And, everybody, we all knew how brilliant he was. He fellowship to the Mayo Clinic and all that stuff. But you wouldn't like have known that if you just ran into him as a doctor. You know, oh my God, he's come over to our house, like, he give us shots, we get out some old pan, he's put water in the stove, he just throws some needles and then it was no, careful, you know, yeah, just jab you with the needles, and he like squirted them. We got around the kitchen. I can remember once, Bill, we're home, we're babysitting, my mom and dad are out. And Bill goes swinging, my brother Bill goes swinging, goes and smacks his head on the radiator. And, you know, he slices it all open. Well, you know, the poor baby starts panicking, you know. He said, yeah, call Uncle Bill Coffee. That's what we did. So Gary we called Uncle Bill Coffee. And over he comes with his little black bag. And poor Bill, whatever. Uncle Bill just sits on the end of bed, like we're all driving around, and he stitches them back together. No. Just stitched them back together and said, well, we all sat and watched. Wow, this is a show. And every once in a while, we go to use them as a doctor. Because, I don't know, our regular doctor was the other time or something. And so he had an office like right in the house. And so you go there and exactly, it was more or less like normal. And, you know, decide what's wrong with you. But Uncle Bill never wrote you a prescription. Uncle Bill, under his desk, he had a cardboard box dumped inside. It was full of drugs, sample drugs. From, you know, the people that come around selling the drugs, you sample. So he would pull that thing out after it was done deciding what was wrong. And he would read through it and like read stuff. Glasses down. You know. All right, here, try this. So, he never got a prescription. He would send you home with whatever the hell he found in his basket. Uncle John Mezzanotti, on the other hand, was actually my doctor for a number of years, probably 10 or more. Was the most soothing, gentle. I mean, as soon as you were in his presence, you felt better. Because he had a way about it. You know, they call it the bedside manner. This was unbelievable. Just soothes you down. Talk almost in a hypnotic way. Such a soothing voice. I don't know if you used it at home, but boy, in the office. in the office, wow. He convinced you. He was a great guy. But one of the reasons, you know, I have a home in Florida too. I used to try and see Uncle John when I was on business traveling through Florida once he was down there retired. And we're having dinner one night, and he says to me, you know, I don't generally give out unsolicited information or unsolicited advice, but I'm going to tell you something. This wintering in Florida is a life-extending experience. That clicked with me. So currently, I am extending my life by spending my winters in Florida. So I think that covers the group. And so therefore, you got this family, these 4 sisters, 3 brothers, and their spouses. And they're like, do I look up to my aunts, to my uncles? They spend a lot of time, I know. But they spend all their time, together a lot. They spend their time laughing a lot. They were loud. I mean, if you were in a room where they were there, you could hear them. They were loud. Because they were having a good time. Because they really enjoyed one another. And they influenced me greatly. I often wondered how our family, that is to say, myself and my siblings, what was the magic sauce that our parents used that make us so tight? I mean, so tight with one another. I mean, we enjoy one another too. We also make a lot of noise. We also laugh a lot. I mean, somehow that model got passed down, and I don't know how. I don't know, how that happened, but it did. And I give a lot of credit to this example, although obviously my younger brothers, they didn't have the example as much as I did, I don't think, but somehow we saw this example of how the Schubert family did with how they work together, how they care for one another, how they enjoy one another. And I think that's hopefully what we do by having gatherings like this, to pass that culture along. Because it's a wonderful culture. It's a wonderful culture where people care and people love one another, people enjoy one another. I have said ever since I was young, I would say to people, total strangers, that my strength in life has come from my family. And by strength, I mean like my courage to do things, my just belief that I could go out on limbs and do stuff. Because I had 7 people that I could call at 2 o'clock in the morning and say, I need you over here. They wouldn't even ask me why. They just come. You know what a great way that is to live? I mean, that is a fabulous way to live. And I've lived that way my whole life. And I wish that for everybody. But that's the way the Schuberts lived. That's the way that family lived above us. And hopefully that puts a little flesh on the bones of those names on the letterhead. I hate being the next in line for that letterhead thing. I'm sorry, it's a great honor, but I can put it off for a while. Yeah, part of it. And I just think it's a legacy that would be good to emulate. Certainly, they weren't perfect people. Nobody's perfect people, but they were a wonderful family. They loved one another, they cared for one another, they looked out for one another, and they enjoyed one another. God, they had a lot of fun. And so, if we could continue that Schubert tradition, we'll be one lucky family.
Thanks, Joe. Joe also has a great deal of seats. So that tradition luckily is carried on. Yeah, they were great. Yeah. So there's the story of this guy in Ireland. Paddy wakes up one day and he sees his name in the obituaries. And he says, he calls his friend Seamus. He says, Seamus, you just see my name's in the obituaries in the papers. He said, I did, Paddy. Where might you be calling from?
Hello, Tim. This is Aunt Laura calling. And I called to say if you will extend my greetings to the family gathered at the creek. I wish I could be there. I just couldn't come. I've made most of them. In fact, all of them, I think, except 2. But I wanted to say just a few words. First of all, I wanted to say my nephew, Johnny Denny, composes lyrics and music, and his recent song is entitled Family is Magic. I love it. It's so true, so true. And that's the way I feel about our family tradition. It keeps our family close, and we can exchange what we've done all year, and we see one another. It's very important to remain close. Keep the family tradition always if we can. Family is so important. I hope the Mass and the family luncheon to follow will go on every year for a long, long time. Tradition is important, but family is very important to me, and I'm sure to you. And the Schubert family is a wonderful family. I'm so glad you could come and be gathered there. And I hope you're all well. And I wish I could be there with you, but I can't. But Tim knows how I am. Do my best. I'm getting up there. I'm the matriarch of the family. Hope he introduced me that way. But I have to say, I love all of you. Happy Thanksgiving, and God bless all of you. Thank you very much. Enjoy the luncheon. Enjoy being special to each other. And remember, family is magic. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.